Yesterday, Tyler Buchner entered the transfer portal, slated to be the backup quarterback this year at Notre Dame with the arrival of Sam Hartman, who transferred in from Wake Forest. I had to go back and look him up. I honestly didn't remember a lot about him, but when I looked into it, it became a little familiar. So he has a very, very small sample size, and he's very polarizing. A lot of people seem to think either he's not worth the trouble, we don't need him, or hey, give him a chance, let's see what he can do. After doing some digging, I realized he's only started 3 games since the end of his junior year of high school. In 2020, he did not play his senior year. Had a very good junior season, though, in California at a private school. A very intelligent kid from all appearances, and an academic school he went to, had some success. But again, didn't play his senior year. As a freshman at Notre Dame, he only had 35 pass attempts, never started, kind of served as a change of pace quarterback. So he entered this season as the incumbent starting quarterback and won the job under Tommy Rees. He started the first 2 games against Ohio State and Marshall. I went back and watched the Ohio State game, and as I recalled, it was a competitive game where Notre Dame actually led in the second half until Ohio State kind of took over. But I thought Tyler played pretty decently. You can barely see at the bottom, but he was 10 of 18, 177 yards. I thought he held up pretty well. I did not watch one snap of the Marshall game, so I can't comment on that. He did get hurt late in that game, and they declared he was probably out for the rest of the season. He needed shoulder surgery. He worked really hard to rehab and get back. He actually spent a lot of time in the booth with Tommy Rees, and Tommy Rees has had a lot of good things to say about him. His intangibles, just overall him as a quarterback, kind of almost reminds me like a Kellen Moore. Seems like a student of the game type player, very intelligent. And again, Notre Dame turned their season around. They started 0-2. They lost to Marshall. They got in a dogfight with Cal. They wound up winning a bunch of games. They actually smoked Clemson late in the season. Went into the bowl game against South Carolina. What happened? Tyler came back, and he was named the starting quarterback by Rees and Marcus Freeman. So you got to think they turned the season around, and then they put Buchner back in. And I wanted to go back and watch the South Carolina game because that's our biggest sample size. And I'm going to play some highlights from that game so we can kind of take them. So South Carolina went down the field and scored. This is their first drive. Notre Dame was driving and answering.
Mitch's first grab of the season, if you can believe that. Irish 2 for 2 on third down on this drive. Buchner keeps it inside.
And then another long third down play. They're going to QB counter play. And he shows how dynamic of a runner he can be. He's not afraid to run. He's not afraid to use his body and be physical. He's very quick and elusive. South Carolina would score. They got the ball back again. Now, this is a pick 6. This is one of his 3 picks. But if you watch closely, the ball was tipped. He goes through his progressions. He throws. And the ball's tipped right there by a lineman. Winds up getting picked. Not really his fault. Perfect throw on third and long. They're down by 14. So can he pass, can he not? Well, they're trailing in this game. They fell behind a lot early. He constantly brings them back. Here we've got a QB power play. Third and goal from the 7. That's a tricky spot. You could say throw it away. It's third down. They kick a field goal anyway. And I've seen Bryce Young and good players take sacks there. That's not the worst thing he could have done. This will go down as a long touchdown. It's really a short pass, and it's a good pass, but the receiver does a lot of the work. Don't read too much into the touchdown. It was a good play. Now here he comes back. You see how quick his release is. Sets up, turns, throws. Touchdown.
Takes it out of Tyree's belly.
Now we come back with another QB run. See, he is not afraid to run between the tackles and make plays. This game's starting to be a high-scoring game. Comes back, answers again with another touchdown. Constantly, South Carolina would score. They had a big home field advantage, and Notre Dame constantly kept coming back.
Tyler Buchner back from that shoulder injury with 4 touchdowns.
Buchner again on another run. Definitely a threat.
Just wonder if the depth is becoming a factor here. Buchner pumps, throws, ends up.
This one will go down as another pick six, but again, if you watch the play, the receiver's bumped and then slightly grabbed. And if that doesn't happen, is it a quick throw touchdown? Maybe the receiver gets blasted, but I doubt it's a pick six. So, it wasn't the worst decision. And then they come back. This is the game-winning touchdown here after the long drive. Notre Dame win. There's his stats from the game. Again, we don't have a big sample size. This is really, you can go back and watch the Ohio State game, but the Ohio State game was his first start on the road in the Horseshoe. It was a very controlled game plan. And what I saw, he threw one pass out of his own end zone. I mean, there were times in the Ohio State game he looked really good, and I was pretty impressed considering it was his first start in almost 3 years. Physically, I like his style. Isn't this what Alabama wants to get to? You got rid of Bill O'Brien, or he left, however you want to put it. Bryce Young is gone. Obviously, they're not going to have a first-round draft pick most likely this year in terms of passing ability, so they want to get back to the running game. He brings a big element to the running game. Will he hold up? That's the biggest question I have. Is he as durable as Jalen Hurts? He's had a torn ACL in high school, and he's had shoulder surgery. That's my biggest question mark. It's not about his ability. Some people want to know how good of a passer he is. I don't think you have to have a rocket arm that can throw it 65 yards. I don't think you need to be first-round potential with your arm. I think a player like Jalen Hurts got the job done. And as soon as I say that, you could look at Jalen Hurts and his progression, and it's just nothing short of incredible. So how quickly we are to judge guys and say that their passing game is not what it could be. Guys get better, and we always forget that. So I don't think he's a bad passer. Tommy Rees coached Tyler Buchner, and he's also coached all the quarterbacks at Alabama. So he would know more than anybody what Tyler brings to the table and for his scheme. And you bet that if Saban's seriously considering it, he's definitely doing his diligence. So you don't have to go off my opinion or what anybody else thinks. If Saban does the diligence and wants the guy, there's probably a good reason. Again, I don't think this was a master plan, not suggesting that because, Buchner was the incumbent quarterback until Hartman came in and took the job. And Buchner competed for that job. They said he had a really good spring, but in the spring game he didn't play that great, and Sam Hartman was phenomenal. So they left that game. They called him the starter. In terms of Buchner coming to Alabama, I don't see any risk there. I think the biggest risk, the thing that scares me, is what if he goes to Auburn? I think he's a perfect fit. I think he gives Auburn a quarterback. That's more of a concern for me. Worst case, he comes to Alabama, he loses the job, he sits behind somebody, he transfers and never plays. Oh, well, there's already 4 blue-chip quarterbacks on the roster. Nobody's scared of competition. There might as well be 12 quarterbacks on Alabama's roster. Now, eventually, if somebody takes the job and runs away with it, maybe guys transfer. But who cares if you have 4 quarterbacks or 10 quarterbacks? It really doesn't matter. And, go back to 2019. Joe Burrow was a very big long shot to win the Heisman. If you're on the lookout for those, it's 100-1 right now. And I'm not predicting he's going to win the Heisman. I'm not predicting anything crazy like that. But that's something you look at and you think, hey, especially if he goes to Auburn, I like the way he plays. I like his skill set. I think he's going to help somebody in the right kind of offense that's built around him.